Resident Evil 3 returns in a new remake where Jill Valentine is back again to be terrorized by the bioweapon Nemesis.
Maybe I can hit the full tank.
Atmosphere. As opposed to the original game, the Resident Evil 3 remake takes place near the start of the outbreak in Raccoon City and precedes the events of Resident Evil 2, which has changed a lot of things, but impacted the atmosphere the most. The town is still alive with people at the start, and you don't go for very long without engaging with Carlos or someone else, and there's not really a feeling of being truly alone. The feeling of returning to the Raccoon City Police Department and seeing the chaos left by Leon and Claire's desperate escape isn't here, as it hasn't happened, which makes that part of the game just dull. The remake has a much higher emphasis on combat sections, including a defend the room part with Carlos that felt completely out of place. It's fun to be able to play as him, but he can literally punch zombies over, and whilst it's cool to see, it makes the zombies feel even more redundant. Raccoon City doesn't feel dead. The familiar music plays, but its feeling of hopelessness and desolation just isn't there. What's most disappointing is just there isn't really anything to replace it. Even when left alone for the brief moments in the game, I didn't really feel any atmosphere whatsoever. There's no eerie quiet of a town claimed by zombies. There's nothing. No Harry Masons.
It's my turn, bitch.
Scares. We all know that Nemesis is the main attraction to this entry in the series, and it's a big letdown on that front too. Most of the interactions with him turn into boss battles and combat sections where he plays a large, ugly bullet sponge, and even when you're being chased through the streets by him, he's rendered useless by so many embarrassing things. In the original game, it was terrifying when he followed you through the door loading screens, because up until that point, nothing else had been able to do that. But now the loading screens are gone, he just sometimes stops chasing you when you enter a save room, or waits outside for you when you enter an area he can't go into, and it's almost comedic. Just like the Resident Evil 2 remake, the heightened maneuverability and Jill's dodge mechanic made the combat very easy, and most of the zombies unremarkable. And whilst the pale head ones, which are disgusting in appearance, boast the ability to regenerate, a shotgun blast to the head seemed to put them down permanently, at least on standard difficulty. The hunter was difficult to kill but could be punched down by Carlos and didn't feel like a huge threat either. The only thing to worry about was getting stuck in a chain of being bitten and knocked down, which was more frustrating than anything. Sadly, for me at least, there wasn't really anything frightening in the game. That's still no Harry Masons. Sound design. Whilst it's missing a lot of the haunting zombie tracks and that eerie wind that made the town feel so dead and empty, it's got some good pieces, though most of the music is action tracks to go with the various combat sections. There's a nice inclusion of some of the original music, but it was the most memorable part of the soundtrack. The sound effects were all pretty good, the voice acting was all very good, and they managed to get a decent rendition of Nemesis's only line. That's one Harry Mason. Gore. Blowing up zombies' heads is still incredibly satisfying, and the gore is still quite high quality, but it's missing a lot of the more iconic scenes from the original. Nemesis's transformation is a lot wilder in this, and thanks to the graphics it's a lot more detailed too, which is pretty nice. The pale heads, as mentioned earlier, are totally disgusting looking, and shooting them clearly does not improve their look. Whilst it's missing things that would have been nice to see in modern day graphics, what is here is pretty good. That's two Harry Masons. Story. Jill Valentine is the last member of the STARS unit left in Raccoon City and the target of the Umbrella-made bioweapon Nemesis. It's revealed later in the game that the town is going to be destroyed with missiles to prevent further spreading of the T-virus outbreak which caused the zombies. The story has been changed radically from the original, and in my opinion, this is the worst move they made when redesigning the remake. Large chunks of the game have been cut out completely, bosses were removed, memorable scenes don't take place anymore, and most of the game is a very rushed take on the story, cutting a lot of corners and adding things that were of no interest. As a result, it's short and forgettable, making the final score 2 out of 5 Harry Masons. Whilst the Resident Evil 2 remake wasn't perfect, they nailed it a lot better than they did this. Again, I'd like to remind you this whole thing is down to my opinion on horror games. If you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I was tired of fighting Nemesis, I did not scream like a banshee or run away from the computer, and I advise you don't either. There will be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. And always go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.